April 18th, 2009, Kings Island in Cedar Fair debuted Diamondback, a $22 million, 230-foot tall hypercoaster. This was the first B&M coaster for Kings Island. The ride is located in Rivertown and is themed to a western diamondback rattlesnake, with fangs, scales, and eyes on the Zero car. That is the extent of the theming on the ride, but B&M and Kings Island get the credit for making the front of the trains look like the head of a diamondback rattlesnake. The ride experience begins with the climb to the top of its 230-foot tall lift hill before you plunge down a jaw-dropping 215 feet at 74 degrees, reaching a top speed of 80 miles an hour. You make a slight right-hand turn and climb into the first of many camelback hills before heading deep into the trees of the park, where you will then hit an overbank turnaround like Millennium Force at Cedar Point has. The ride experience is smooth, however, depending on the train and I think where you sit, it has suffered from the B&M rattle after 17 years of operation. It is one of the smoother B&Ms out there. I've heard some things about the newer B&Ms, but I cannot comment on that as I have not done them. Anyway, back to Diamondback. You have a clamshell restraint and a seatbelt. The seatbelt is a measuring device for those who don't know. It is not an added safety device that I know of. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, despite the seatbelt and the clamshell restraints, if you are lucky enough to get a looser restraint that does not lock in place and pin you to the seat, the floater and the sustained airtime on the ride are amazing. Now, like most coasters, it suffers when the computer thinks that the ride is going too fast and the trims kick in a little too much. They don't on most occasions, but they are unfortunately noticeable. Diamondback is unique as it is the only coaster, I believe, to have a proper splashdown finale. And yes, the train actually scoops water, unlike some other coasters, where it's just water cannon effect as the train goes past. Of the 4 hyper category B&M coasters I've done, Diamondback is definitely one of my favorites. And operations on the ride, they, depending on the team, they're good. Unfortunately, it suffers because of how the restraints are. Unfortunately, sometimes it sits in the station for a while if you get a guest larger in size, while they try to make sure that clamshell closes enough that it's safe. The ride runs 3 trains, and typically 2 will stack, sometimes all 3 stack. I have noticed a lot of times I don't think it's intentional, but they are not sending the train in the station until the one in front is almost, if not completely, on the brake run. But it is one of my favorites. I love it. I love the fact that the first drop goes down over the path. You can walk under it and hear it fly down the first drop. And if you've ever been to Kings Island and heard the that clacking noise when it hits the bottom of the first drop, I want to say that's the G-forces messing with the anti-rollbacks on the bottom of the train. My favorite spot to stand is actually on the pathway. So when it comes back off the mid-course brake run, it pulls up into a helix over where they used to have a game there. It was soccer, and I think now it's basketball, like a 3-point shot game. Favorite spot to stand is underneath the track. It comes out helix, and I mean, it comes down over the pathway, through the splash, and up into the brakes. And actually, if you're on the ride, if you get the last row, stick your arms out far enough, you can actually get a bit of a sprinkle from the roosters. Anyway, of rides in the park, on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm going to give it a 5. It's definitely a good ride for something that's 17 years old this year. It's crazy to think that that ride is that old already. And it runs great. I mean, the park takes care of it. Again, you know, like all B&Ms, it suffers from the rattle. But it was my... No, it was not my first steel coaster. It was my second steel coaster, but it was also my first hyper. And it's definitely one of my favorites, and a good ride at that. But that is going to do it for my first coaster review. Apologies if this is not the greatest, but that does it. Thank you all so much for watching. The platform is all clear. Keep arms down, head back, hold on, and enjoy the ride. And I will see you next time. And take care.